I don't know exactly when it started. When my wife Lorna stopped being my Lorna. Maybe it was a slow fade, a collection of little moments I ignored because I didn't want to believe things were changing. Or maybe it was always there, waiting for the right excuse to bubble to the surface. Either way, when she told me about the party, I knew. It was a Thursday evening. The house smelled like pasta sauce from the dinner I had made, but Lorna barely touched her plate. Instead, she was scrolling through her phone, a faint smile flickering across her lips. I watched her for a moment before breaking the silence. What's so interesting? She glanced up like she had forgotten I was even there. Oh, just a text from Miriam. She's throwing a party this weekend. That wasn't surprising. Lorna's college friends were always finding an excuse to celebrate something. I didn't mind, usually, but something about the way she was avoiding my gaze told me there was more to it. Who's gonna be there? I asked, casually swirling my fork in my food. She hesitated for half a second. The usual group. I put my fork down. Including him? Her jaw tensed. That told me everything I needed to know. Hugh is part of the group, so yes, he'll be there, she said, as if it was no big deal. Hugh, her ex. The guy she had dated on and off for years before she and I got together. He was a sore subject, not because I was insecure, but because I knew how he worked. He was the kind of guy who loved knowing he still had an effect on her. And, if I was being honest, I wasn't sure Lorna was completely immune to it. You haven't talked about him in a while, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She sighed, pushing her plate away. Because I knew you'd make it weird. I'm not making it weird, I said carefully. I'm just asking why you suddenly want to go to a party at his house. She crossed her arms. Because I'm allowed to have friends, Silas. That's not what I'm saying. Well, it sure feels like it. Her voice was sharp now, defensive. But that wasn't what got to me. What really cut deep was the look in her eyes. It wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was boredom. Like she had already checked out of this conversation. Maybe even this marriage. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't just about a party. It was about her pushing boundaries, testing me, seeing how much I'd tolerate. I took a slow breath. So you're going no matter what I say? She lifted her chin. Yes. That was it. No apology, no attempt to reassure me. Just yes. I could feel something inside me shifting, something deep in my chest that I wasn't ready to name yet. But I nodded. Okay. She blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. Okay. I gave her a small smile. Have fun. For the first time all night, she looked uneasy. And she should have been. Because when she walked into that party, she had no idea what was waiting for her. Lorna left for the party without looking back. I watched from the kitchen window as she stepped outside, heels clicking against the pavement, slipping into the car like she wasn't leaving behind the life we had built together. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. It was like she had already made her choice long before tonight. The car disappeared down the street, and suddenly, the house felt quieter than it ever had before. I stood there for a while, staring at the empty space where she had just been. My hands rested on the edge of the counter, pressing against the cool surface like I needed something solid to hold on to. But the truth was, I had already lost my grip on everything. It wasn't just about tonight. This was the moment I knew, really knew, that she wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a long time. I leaned back against the counter, running a hand down my face. My mind raced, piecing together all the signs I had ignored. The distance. The way she laughed a little too hard at her texts. The extra effort she put into her appearance whenever she went out without me. She thought I was blind. But I wasn't. I had just been waiting. Waiting for her to prove me wrong. Waiting for her to remember who we were before all of this. But she didn't. She packed her bag, did her hair, and walked straight out that door, knowing exactly where she was going. To him. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let it break me. I pushed off the counter and walked into the living room. The dim light from the lamp cast long shadows across the walls. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. Our wedding photo sat on the bookshelf, me in my suit, her in white, grinning like we had the whole world ahead of us. I picked it up, running my thumb over the glass. 6 years. 6 years of shared mornings, late-night talks, road trips, inside jokes. 6 years of believing in something that had been crumbling right in front of me. I set the frame down, this time face down. I didn't want to look at it anymore. Instead, I grabbed my phone, and I made a choice. Lorna wasn't the only one who could rewrite the rules. I wasn't going to sit at home like the fool she thought I was. Tonight, I was going to make sure she never forgot what she walked away from. The house was silent, but my mind wasn't. Lorna had left less than 20 minutes ago, yet it already felt like she had been gone forever. I sat on the couch, my elbows resting on my knees, staring at the blank TV screen. A part of me expected my phone to light up, for her to text me something, anything. Maybe a fake reassurance, maybe a good night out of obligation. But I knew better. She had made her choice the moment she said yes to that party. I had spent months, maybe even years, giving her the benefit of the doubt, telling myself I was overthinking things, that I was being paranoid. But people don't just wake up one day and decide to be careless with the person who loves them. No, it happens slowly, piece by piece. And now, I was done ignoring it. I stood up, my heart pounding, not from nerves, not from sadness, but from a cold, undeniable clarity. Lorna thought she was walking into that party with control. She thought she was the one pulling the strings, testing the waters to see just how far she could push before I snapped. She had no idea she had already lost. I walked to the bedroom, opened my closet, and grabbed a fresh shirt. Nothing too flashy, nothing that screamed I'm doing this for revenge, because I wasn't. I wasn't going to embarrass myself chasing after her. No, this was about me. About reminding myself who I was before I let love blind me. I buttoned up my shirt, ran a hand through my hair, and grabbed my keys. It was time for a change. The drive wasn't long. 10 minutes, tops. I didn't even have to think about where I was going. It was automatic. The neon glow of the bar sign flickered against the dark sky as I pulled into the parking lot. I had been here before, but it had been a while. Before marriage, before responsibilities, before I let myself get wrapped up in a woman who no longer saw me. I stepped inside, the familiar hum of music and conversation washing over me. It was packed, Friday night, no surprise. People laughing, clinking glasses, living in the moment. And that's exactly what I needed to do. I made my way to the bar, sliding onto a stool. The bartender, Casey, recognized me instantly. Well, she smirked, wiping down the counter. Haven't seen you in ages. Thought you went all domestic? I let out a low chuckle. Something like that. She raised an eyebrow. And yet, here you are. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I grabbed the drink she slid in front of me, took a sip, and let the warmth settle in. Yeah, here I was. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hoping. I wasn't sitting at home, wondering if Lorna was thinking about me while she stood in her ex's living room, sipping a drink and laughing at old jokes. No, I was done. But as I sat there, absorbing the energy of the room, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting maybe a text from a buddy. But when I saw the name on the screen, my lips curled into a smirk. Lorna. Not a call. A text. Where are you? I leaned back, rolling the glass between my fingers. She had left this house hours ago, barely sparing me a second glance. And now she was asking where I was? Interesting. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because I had a feeling this night was far from over. I stared at my phone screen for a moment, letting the text sink in. Where are you? It wasn't just a question. It was a crack in her confidence. Lorna had walked out that door so sure of herself, like she had the upper hand, like I was just going to sit around waiting for her. But now, she was looking for me. I could almost picture her, standing in the middle of that party, scanning the crowd, expecting me to be home, expecting me to be predictable. Not tonight. I slid my phone back into my pocket and lifted my drink to my lips, taking my time. No rush. If she wanted to know where I was, she could wait. Casey, the bartender, leaned on the counter, smirking at me. That look on your face tells me you just got a very interesting text. I chuckled, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Something like that. She tilted her head. Ex checking in on you? I raised an eyebrow. Not yet, but she might be soon. She let out a low whistle. Oh, this is getting good. I didn't say anything, just smirked and took another sip. The truth was, I wasn't just ignoring Lorna's text to mess with her. I was enjoying the silence. It had been a long time since I felt like I was the one in control. The second text came 20 minutes later. Are you home? I laughed under my breath. Home? No, I wasn't home. But it was cute that she thought I would be. I imagined her standing by her ex's kitchen counter, drink in hand, phone in the other. Was she starting to feel guilty? Uncertain? Maybe just annoyed that I wasn't at her beck and call? I still didn't reply. Instead, I got up, stretched my shoulders, and left the bar. The night air was cool against my skin as I walked to my car. I wasn't drunk, just relaxed, clear-headed. And I had an idea. If Lorna wanted to play games, I could play too. I took my time getting home, drove slower than usual, stopped at a gas station even though my tank was still half full. By the time I pulled into the driveway, another text was waiting for me. Are you ignoring me? I sat in my car for a moment, letting the headlights illuminate the front of the house. Then, finally, I responded. No, just busy. It was simple, vague, and I knew it would eat at her. Almost instantly, the typing bubbles appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I smirked. She's thinking. Good. A full minute passed before she finally responded. Busy with what? There it was. The shift. For the first time in a long time, Lorna was the one wondering, waiting. I could have answered her. I could have told her exactly where I had been. Let her know that she wasn't the only one who could go out and live their life without a care. But I didn't. Instead, I turned off my phone, got out of the car, and walked inside. Let her sit with the uncertainty for once. The house was dark when I stepped inside, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamp outside. It was quiet, too quiet. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle around me, feeling the weight of everything that had happened tonight. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. I walked over to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. My phone sat face down beside me. No vibrations, no notifications. For the first time in years, Lorna was the one waiting on me, and I was going to let her. I took my time getting ready for bed, changed into a fresh t-shirt, brushed my teeth, stretched out my shoulders. My body was relaxed, but my mind was sharp, clearer than it had been in months. Lorna had spent so much time making me question myself, making me doubt my own instincts. And now, she was the one questioning me. I climbed into bed, staring up at the ceiling. The spot next to me was empty, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't bother me. She made her choice. Now, she had to live with it. 2:37 a.m. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It took me a second to register what was happening. The room was dark, the glow of the screen casting long shadows across the walls. I blinked, reaching for the phone, squinting at the name on the screen. Lorna. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then silence. I exhaled slowly, setting the phone back down. A few seconds later, another buzz. This time, a text. Are you awake? I stared at the words for a moment before locking the screen. I didn't owe her a response. Not yet. 3:04 a.m. Another buzz. I sighed, rolling onto my side, checking the message. I just got home. Can we talk? I let my eyes drift toward the bedroom door. Sure enough, I heard the faint creak of the front door shutting, followed by the soft click of her heels on the hardwood floor. She was home, and she was nervous. I smirked to myself. Good. I didn't rush. I stretched, sat up, and finally, after a long pause, I responded. Busy. It was the same word I had sent earlier. Short, simple, and enough to get under her skin. I waited. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then finally. Busy with what? I could almost see her standing in the kitchen, staring at her phone, frustration written all over her face. She had expected me to be home, to be asleep, to be waiting for her. But I wasn't. I set my phone down, leaned back against the pillows, and closed my eyes. She could wonder all night for all I cared. I'd let her sit in the silence. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of movement downstairs. The muffled clatter of dishes, the slow shuffle of footsteps across the hardwood floor. Lorna was trying to act normal. I stretched, letting the early sunlight seep into the room before I finally sat up. I wasn't in a rush to go downstairs. Last night had been satisfying. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one stuck wondering, waiting, replaying conversations in my head. That was all on her now. I checked my phone. No new messages. I smirked. So, she had given up on fishing for answers, for now. Finally, I pulled myself out of bed, ran a hand through my hair, and made my way downstairs. Lorna was at the kitchen counter, stirring a cup of coffee. She was dressed in an oversized sweater and leggings, her usual lazy morning attire. But there was something different about her body language. She looked uneasy. She glanced up when she heard my footsteps. Morning. Her voice was casual, but her eyes were watching me closely. I grabbed a mug from the cabinet, poured myself some coffee, and took a slow sip before answering. Morning. Silence. She was waiting for me to say something. Maybe to ask about her night, maybe to confront her, maybe to care. I did none of those things. Instead, I grabbed my phone off the counter and scrolled through it like she wasn't even there. Lorna cleared her throat. You got home late. I didn't look up. Yeah. Another pause. I could feel her staring at me. Where were you? There it was. The question she had been holding in all night. I finally met her gaze. Her expression was casual, too casual, like she was trying to act like she didn't care about my answer. But the tension in her shoulders gave her away. I took another sip of coffee, savoring the moment. Out, I said simply. Her lips pressed together. Out where? I shrugged. Just out. She set her mug down a little too forcefully. Are we playing games now? I tilted my head, feigning confusion. Games. Her jaw tightened. Silas. The way she said my name. It wasn't angry. It was something else. Something uncertain. Good. I let the silence stretch between us, waiting to see if she would press further. She didn't. Instead, she inhaled deeply and leaned against the counter, trying to regain control of the conversation. Look, I don't want to fight. She hesitated. I just don't understand why you're acting like this. That made me laugh. I set my coffee down and crossed my arms. Like what? She gestured vaguely. Like you don't care. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the counter. Should I? Her eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by my bluntness. That's when I saw it. The crack. The tiny flicker of doubt in her expression. She hadn't expected this. She had expected me to be upset, to demand answers, to act like the wounded husband. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. She exhaled, shaking her head. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but... I cut her off. I'm not trying to prove anything, Lorna. I just finally see things clearly now. Her brows furrowed. See what? I smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. That I've been the only one in this marriage, actually in this marriage. She froze. And in that moment, I knew she felt it too. The shift. The power wasn't in her hands anymore. And for the first time since this all started, she wasn't the one pulling the strings. Lorna didn't say anything right away. She just stared at me, her grip tightening around the coffee mug, like she needed something to hold on to. For years, she had been the one steering the ship. I had been patient, understanding, willing to talk things through even when I felt like I was the only one trying. But last night changed something. And now? Now she was the one feeling that uneasy, gnawing uncertainty. I let the silence hang between us, sipping my coffee like I had all the time in the world. I wasn't going to break it first. I wasn't going to chase after an explanation she wasn't ready to give. Let her stew in it. Finally, she spoke. I don't know why you're acting like this, she muttered, setting her cup down. Like what? I asked, feigning ignorance. She sighed, rubbing her temple. Like you don't care. Like none of this matters to you. I chuckled under my breath, shaking my head. That's funny coming from you. Her eyes snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? I tilted my head, studying her. Lorna, you walked out of this house last night without a second thought. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted to go, and you didn't care how I felt about it. So why does it bother you so much that I went out too? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. She didn't have an answer. I could see the thoughts running through her head, the calculations, the way she was trying to piece together a response that would put her back in control of the conversation. But there wasn't one. For the first time, she was at a loss. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "You're twisting this," she finally said. I laughed again, this time louder. "I'm twisting it? Lorna, you made a choice. Now you have to live with it." She exhaled sharply, turning away from me, running a hand through her hair. "You're impossible," she muttered under her breath. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I just finally woke up. Silence again. The weight of my words settled between us, heavy and undeniable. Lorna tapped her fingers against the counter, clearly agitated. I could see the wheels turning, the way she was trying to find a way to shift the blame. But it wasn't working this time. Not anymore. She turned back to me, her expression unreadable. "I didn't do anything wrong." I smirked. "Did I say you did?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're trying to make me feel guilty." I shrugged again, taking another sip of coffee. "If you feel guilty, that's on you." She huffed, pushing off the counter and storming toward the living room. I heard her sink onto the couch, the sound of her exhaling heavily. Good. Let her sit with it. I wasn't the one chasing her anymore. She was chasing me, and it was about time. Lorna sat on the couch, arms crossed, staring out the window like she was waiting for some kind of revelation to hit her. But there was nothing left to say, nothing left to fight about. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I finished my coffee, rinsed out the mug, and leaned against the sink, watching her from across the room. The woman who used to be my best friend, my partner, my person, now just someone I didn't recognize anymore. She finally turned her head toward me, her expression softer now, like she had finally let go of whatever argument she was trying to build. "Silas," she started, hesitating. I raised a brow. "Yeah." Her lips parted like she wanted to say something real, something meaningful, but nothing came out. And that's when I knew. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't remorseful. She was just afraid of losing her safety net, of losing me. But I was already gone. I grabbed my keys from the counter and made my way toward the door. She sat up straighter, her brows furrowing. "Where are you going?" I smirked, shaking my head. "Don't worry about it." For the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by her choices, by the constant need to make things work when I was the only one trying. I wasn't stuck waiting for her to figure out if I was enough. I was enough. I just hadn't been with the right person. As I stepped outside, the cool morning air filled my lungs, refreshing and new. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing. I was walking towards something better. And this time, I wasn't looking back.